Chapter 8. To see the one and only Nona in person was an experience Vanya had yet to have. He wasn't a part of the group to detain her. Instead, he was only a part of the force tasked with clearing out Parliament, where the highest officials were to be captured. "What are you doing here?" asked Katyusha. "I've been looking for you, Katyusha. I never gave up my search for you. After you were freed, I did all that I could to find out where you were taken. I eventually found out about this town, and I just so happened to stop here. This restaurant was really only the few places that would allow me in," replied Nona. "Well, of course, Nona, you're still wearing that Pravda pin," pointed Katyusha. "I will never take it off," argued Nona. "I will not let the tarnishing of this symbol hide what it originally stood for. Nor will I let it tarnish that it is the matching pendant to the one that I gave you." Katyusha clutched her chest and spoke. "I still wear the necklace you gave me, Nona. Believe me, I meant no disrespect. It's just, people do not accept us for what we have done. That is immutable." Nona relented and nodded. "I can concede that." "Who is this?" she asked Katyusha. "This is Vanya, the man who saved me from the trial back in the big city," replied Katyusha. "That was you?" "Thank you," said Nona, leaning forward and kissing Vanya on the cheek. "You have saved my closest friend, and for that I am ever grateful to you." "It was nothing. Nobody deserves what was at the end of the line for Katyusha. You were young, you made mistakes. Big ones, yes. But I understand why things happen as they do sometimes." "I presume Katyusha spoke to you of what Clara did, then?" "Yes, she did," replied Vanya. "But I don't think she told you everything, for not even I told her everything. Indeed, I think it was fair to say we were very much embroiled in our idealism of the time, but Clara was to an extent that neither Katyusha or I were. I remember how well Clara convinced me that what we were doing was just. It was for the security of the state. I was such a fool to fall into that trap. And I was even more so for allowing you to fall into that trap as well, Katyusha," finished Nona as she spoke to Katyusha. "I'm a grown woman, and I was at the time. I made my mistakes on my own," replied Katyusha. "If I may ask, Vanya, for what reason did you save my friend here?" asked Nona. "Perhaps later I might speak of it to you, but for now, let's eat," said Vanya, avoiding Nona's question, as the server came to their table and served them their food. Along with their order, Nona's food was also brought, as she had ordered it in the time where Katyusha and Vanya had sat down. At the conclusion of dinner, Vanya offered to drive Nona home with him, since she really didn't have anywhere to stay. "You can either share a room with Katyusha if you'd like, or perhaps take the downstairs room." "There's a downstairs room?" asked Katyusha. "Sort of. It's an annex to the foyer, so it's a little less private than a bedroom. But it's where my son used to sleep." "You have kids?" asked Nona. "Had kids," replied Vanya. The three exited the wagon and went inside to sit in their kitchen. Vanya poured drinks for all three of them to celebrate their reunion, and gave a cheers to good health. It amazed Vanya how well Katyusha could hold her liquor, though due to her overindulgence she became drunk, leaving Nona to take Katyusha up to her room for the night. Vanya moved into the foyer and sat by himself, watching the clock beside the downstairs fireplace pass minute by minute. It was quiet, leaving Vanya with just his thoughts and memories. "Were you in the army?" asked somebody to the left of Vanya. He looked over to see Nona standing by the threshold of the foyer. Nona stared at him with a small smile on her face. "My son. He was. I was in the Armed Revolutionary Forces?" Vanya nodded. "Katyusha seems to really like you. She says that you treat her well, like a good friend. I'm glad that she's had somebody while I was away from her." "I'm sorry," replied Vanya. "Sorry for what?" asked Nona, now walking in to sit beside Vanya. "I'm sorry for what I've done to you." Surely Katusha told you, replied Vanya. That you are Vanya Alexander, former leader of the revolutionary force, and that you were present at the siege of our palace, answered Nona. Vanya nodded. Yes, I know that much. But there's no reason for you to be sorry. I'm rather glad that your force came to put an end to our tyranny. It was never my hope to see my nation, as it turned out, under Clara's heel. But alas, I was complicit, answered Nona. But look at all I've done to hurt others, what my actions have caused, all the suffering the war has brought. And this Clara you speak of, she was never brought to justice. I know how the trial went for Katusha. It was closed before it started, and this Clara caused all the pain and suffering. Everything that angered so many people, and yet you and Katusha were made blamed by the people, so they could have somebody to blame. I doubt she has made it very far. I know she was not captured, but the revolutionaries are stirring up again, especially in the bigger cities. They want blood. They've had a taste of it and they want more, said Nona. Vanya shook his head. That's why I hated working with them. I hated all that they do to people. The ones who oppress them are now being oppressed by them. They don't care about the costs, the tolls, the suffering, as long as it's not their people. Is that why you saved Katusha? Asked Nona. I couldn't stand by knowing what they would have done to her if I didn't. Besides, I wanted to know if she felt the same as I did. Did she? Asked Nona. I think so. After all, I never wanted a revolution. I never wanted to be a revolutionary. I just wanted to avenge my family's death. I lashed out, and rather than being punished immediately, I was punished over time by being exalted for such an unholy act, replied Vanya. So you wanted Katusha to share your emotion? No, cried Vanya, though after thinking he answered, yes. I suppose I did selfishly. I didn't want to be alone. But yet I do mean my answer no, because I don't want others to suffer as I do. You're a good man, Vanya, stated Nona. It's easy for somebody to wish harm on another, especially somebody who has wronged you. But you've gone back on that sentiment. You may have acted on it before, but it seems that perhaps you are no longer that same man.